All right. Boardroom time clock has the time at 5:30. I will call this Board of Director meeting of the Southeast Polk Community School District to order of September 17th, 2020. Karen, can you call a roll?
Fisher,
Here.
Nave,
Here.
Slings,
Here.
Andy,
Here.
Crowell,
Here.
Powell,
Here.
Crab,
Here.
All right. We have our quorum. All directors are present. Next item is agenda adoption. Understand there is a change from earlier, couple
Yes,
of items.
we need to omit 2D.
Okay.
Those will move to the 10-1 meeting.
Have a motion for the agenda
Motion to adopt the agenda, please.
as,
2D.
As corrected.
okay,
Seconded.
all right.
You said 2D and E?
Yep.
P is in dog and E.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Karen?
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes. Okay, item 1C is the district vision and mission. Lori?
Southeast Polk will learn, lead, live. Success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is 1D, public comments. I understand we don't have any comments yet, but we'll wait a minute or so and see if anybody has any to submit. Board Secretary, have you received any public comments?
President Fisher, we have received no comments through the linked in board meeting questions
All right,
area.
Thank you. We'll wait about a minute here and see if somebody is typing. I think all board members have received numerous emails. I was trying to think. My guess is, well, it's not hundreds, but my guess is it probably is, given the volume since our last meeting. So do read them. I know we don't all respond to them. I know I don't, but they are read and they are appreciated. Okay, Jason, any comments?
None that I see, but Kevin, do you see any comments in Zoom?
I do not see any comments in Zoom.
All right, we'll proceed then. Public comments are closed. Next item is 1E, consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions or comments on items on the consent agenda? All right, Karen?
Slings,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Okay, Roman numeral 2, old and new business. Item A is confirmation of next meeting, or meetings, I guess. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the next meetings.
Second?
Second.
Thanks, Rick. Any questions on those? We'll have 2 meetings in October, 1st and 15th, if approved. Karen?
Andy,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
All right, next item is Roman numeral 2B, acceptance of abstract of votes, bond referendum. Mr.
Good evening,
McConnell.
board. Yes, good evening, board. You have the bound attachment, the abstract of votes attachment to your agenda item. 2,197 total votes. Initially, we had 2,185. I think we had a few trickle in, the absentee ballots trickle in, all of them with yes votes, actually. Giving you an idea too, with the other issuance referendums that are on the, back on the referendum back on September 8th, Bondurant had about 12% of their eligible voters vote. Saydell had 15%. We here at Southeast Polk only had 8% of our eligible voters vote. But of those voters, as you see, we can officially say we received 70% of those votes as saying yes to our referendum.
I see you got your magic number.
I was hoping for 75%, but I'll settle for 70.
I think that's fantastic. It's a lot better than 69.43.
I think so as well.
How does that compare to previous bond referendums?
You know, the last one that was done for high school and Clay Elementary passed just by the slimmest of margins. I think it was just under 61% at that time.
Questions or comments? Thank you all who did the hard work.
Yes,
I
thank you.
mean, just amazing, you know, to do that. And then on top of, I mean, we had a lot of discussion at the board table. Was now the time to do it? And it's like, well, you know, our needs don't end and the school's going to go on and this virus will come and go and we've got to deal long term. And so I'm glad Lori helped out and did the movie or whatever. I didn't want to jinx it by putting my ugly mug on that.
And the committee works day and night, all the different members of the committee. Thank you to everyone that worked on the committee and did their part to talk to their friends and neighbors. This wouldn't have been possible without all of your help. Thank you.
I would echo that, Mrs. Slings. One of the numbers that we were looking at closely were the absentee ballots, and that really pushed us over that 60% pretty heavily. And that was the one area which the committee did work pretty hard on.
Thank you all. I guess, any more questions, comments? Let's accept it.
Move
Karen?
to accept.
I need a motion.
Oh,
Move
I
to
thought
accept.
somebody moved. I'm sorry. Adam moved it. Second.
I'll second.
Brett, thank you.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes,
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes,
Handy,
Yes.
All right. Item 2C is return to learn.
motion to continue with hybrid 2 through October 30th.
All right. Is there a second?
second.
Discussion, comments? Dr. Lupnick?
You bet. I'm going to have Jason put up some data here.
Okay.
In looking at the data available, determining the recommendation that we felt would best allow us to sustain face-to-face experience for our kids and staff and community and still maintain health and safety of all. Some of the updated data, and this is as of today, and it's even changed since this afternoon. Looking at percent positivity there, this morning it was 7.1%. Right now, right before this meeting started, it was at 7.2%. And you can follow since school started in the graph there. And you can also look county by county as you want to, and there's the data that goes along with that. You can see that we've hovered between 7, 10-ish%, 11 throughout the time that we've been in school. The good news is it looks like that number is starting to move down and trend in a downward area, and we hope it stays that way. Attendance rates, absentee rates, again, I guess I need to talk in the language.
What did you call it?
I started to say attendance rates, but it's absentee rates.
Oh, okay.
For this week so far, in the 4 days we've had, we're at 2.74% for an absentee rate, pretty much right on with where we would normally be. Pretty similar to where we were at this point last. Those graphs are not meant to make you get dizzy when you look at them. But that is each of our buildings, both student and staff, since the first day of school. You can kind of follow. And on the next page, we have our student and staff COVID-19 data. In looking at our student data, you can see that we currently have 6 students that are in isolation, 39 are in. And on the staff side, we have no one in isolation, 5 in quarantine, and none of those are school related. So again, we'd like all those to be zeros, but the trend on that is also good to see that. And then on the final page there, cases over the last 14 days, see there have been 1347. You can follow along since school has started. There was that spike in there when the state added the antigen test data, and then that's kind of stabled out. And then the final graph there are the cases per 100,000 in the last 14 days. And you can see that we're at 274.9. I guess I would just like to say that, again, this is not a recommendation for a permanent change. We continue to want this to be as short term as possible. All of us agree that we want students back learning in person. We all agree on this important value. It's a recommendation to allow us to provide a sustainable in-person experience until our community conditions improve and allow us to safely provide the hybrid 1 option. We also recognize the significant challenges that this presents for everyone involved: parents, teachers, administrators, students. There continues not to be an easy answer to this in the middle of the pandemic. To that, I do want to share one more thing that you have at your seats, and that is the most recent guidance that's been released for schools by the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, called the Indicators for Dynamic School Decision. This was made public yesterday, and what it does is identify some core indicators to help schools make decisions on what mode of learning to provide. There are no hard and fast, if this, then that, rather it's guidance. But it does talk in a language that we have been talking here and align a little bit more with the data that we've been collecting as well. You can see that there are 3 core indicators on the very front page of that sheet, colored graph. The first core indicator is number of new cases per 100,000 persons within the last 14 days. And you can see across the top, that ranges from green lowest risk all the way over to the red highest risk. And for us right now, as I just told you, we're at 274.9. That would put us in that highest risk of transmission. The second core indicator is the percent positivity. As I shared, we're at 7.1. We'll go with what was at 10 o'clock this morning. And that puts us in that moderate risk of transition, kind of right in the middle. And then some real positive news, the third core indicator are the 5 key mitigation strategies: consistent correct use of masks, social distancing to the largest extent possible, hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette, cleaning, disinfection, and contact tracing in collaboration with local health. And I think that we can say we're in the green there, and that we have implemented all 5 of these correctly and consistently. There are some other secondary indicators, things like the trends of new cases, things having to do with the healthcare system, but the 3 core are what are on this page right here. And I share this because I think it does give us an idea of, we can't and won't stay in hybrid 2 forever. And how do we get there so that we can get all of our students a guideline here that is much more than that has been done in the past.
So we've talked about a little bit for that first section, we'd be in the red, the highest risk. For the second section, right now, we'd be at the yellow, the moderate risk. For the third section, would you, I assume we would say that we're in the lowest risk portion of the dark green. Would that be accurate?
That's how I would interpret it, yes.
Okay. Okay. Has there been any, I know this isn't a direct this, therefore that type of correlation, but has there been any additional elaboration by either the CDC or as to how to interpret this or best course of action or anything of that nature? Or
Not that I have seen.
okay.
There are other states that have different criteria. For example, Minnesota uses just simply the 100,000 persons per 14 days. They shorten it down to 10,000 instead of 100, but it's effectively the same measure. And then they do have guidance. If the number is between this and this, then you're face to face. If it's that, then you're hybrid and so on.
Okay.
But no, not with this that we have right here.
Okay.
I guess I'm a little confused on, I suppose, a recommendation based upon everything going in the correct direction. I guess, I don't know if you can give us more insight into that.
I'm sorry, can you ask me that?
Like with our positivity rate dropping, everything else being stable, as far as like hospitalizations, all that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of, I don't know, I guess a little confused. And then we've got neighboring schools, which we've looked into. Waukee got their big press. I mean, almost twice as big as us. I guess I'm kind of confused on why we're sitting and we're stagnant. We're not trying to make any changes, or we're not trying to push for it. Cause it's kind of like now it's like, if not now, when? So I mean, everything's trending. Our kids are doing what they're supposed to. I mean, all our rates are good. We have absolutely nothing going on in schools as far as positivity rates and everything. As far as, I mean, that's fantastic.
How much of that can be attributed to what our model is already, though?
Yeah, but how much would change otherwise? That's what I'm asking. We haven't tried anything else. We don't have any idea. We look at Waukee, we look at Valley, we look at Pella. I mean, all our surrounding schools, there's not, I mean, you're going to have bumps in the road. We're going to have them regardless. But I mean, COVID's out there. We're not doing anything to get rid of it. So the CDC came out today, right? The director, and said masks, he thinks, are going to be more protective than what the vaccine is going to be. And that's a pretty strong statement from the CDC.
Certainly.
So, and I mean, we're masking in school. We're masking with our teachers. We're masking with our students. And if that's better than the vaccine, then I don't see us ever changing models if we keep this same behavior up.
But
I mean, everything's trending. We're doing what we're supposed to.
The CDC thing here, that I think that does give us a pretty clear when we can.
Well, I don't know if it's
safely
clear. I
change
mean,
models,
we're at highest risk in one, and then we're moderate to low in the other two.
right?
So when you average that out, we're
if
at
that
moderate
one would-
risk.
then we can transition into hybrid 1, which is what we all want.
Right.
And that's the first thing that's stated right here on the CDC. It's critical for schools to open as safely and as quickly as possible for in-person learning. I think we all agree with that.
Yeah. I
No
just
one
don't know what,
disagrees that.
I guess I don't know, where do we have to be on this chart then? I mean, this is brand new, so this isn't what factored into our decision-making.
Right.
But I guess I want to know what kind of what went into this, saying, hey, it's too risky, it's too dangerous. I realize we can't do 6-foot spacing in schools. And that's what terrified all of our teachers. And it terrified me when I seen what they were doing in elementary schools and stuff. You can't move kids 6 feet away. You can't split classrooms. You can't do all that. That's absolutely terrible.
Yep.
So, but I guess I'm not sure when they say, CDC themselves say, hey, when you can't do 6 foot, you put a mask on. I mean, they backed off in this literature. They backed off everywhere as far as not saying it has to maintain 6 foot. 6 foot when possible. And if it creates a hardship, put a mask on. And now they're saying, oh, hey, by the way, the mask is probably better than what the vaccine is going to be. So I guess I don't know what else we can do or what we can improve that's going to say, hey, things are good. I mean, our mitigation efforts are as good as what they're telling us they can be. We're spending $70,000 a month now going in and cleaning our buildings overnight, right? Sterilizing. I kind of assumed that was like a step forward saying, hey, we're putting in all these extra efforts. Here's why. And I guess this is like it's not a step backwards, but this is not where we want to be. And this is not where our kids need to be. So, I mean, I'm super frustrated just as far as saying, I look at all these numbers and it's like, hey, things are finally turning around. It looks good. Our neighboring schools are having incredible success.
Are they though?
Why not? Yes, they are.
In what way?
That's why I'm kind of like,
We can't base everything off of one school, and everything we've talked about here at the board table or wherever has been West Des Moines. We haven't, have we looked at Norwalk? Have we looked at Carlisle? Have we looked at
fellow.
Pella? I mean,
Valley.
what are the stats?
Waukee's the biggest one though. I mean, that's
Well,
11,000 over
let's talk
almost
about
12,000.
Let's talk about Waukee, because I actually spent this last week calling those boards and asking them how they were able to get it done. Instead of just looking at it from the press, I actually called them and asked. So when we look at Waukee, first and foremost, they start out with a smaller average class size than we have.
Then what? I'm sorry.
A smaller average class size.
Then
So for years, our average class size was 24. Theirs is 22. So it's about 8% different, okay?
Wait,
As it
two.
stands right now, we have, what'd you say earlier, Dirk, 16% or so is what we have online. They have about 23. So they have a larger percentage of their district that's chosen online.
But you don't know what parents may choose to go online.
Sure.
Right now, part of the problem is we send a survey out
Mhm.
and we don't even honor that and look at that as true data. If we're an organization that goes off data, so there's a fact
Sure.
point there that, you want to really get down to the meat and potatoes of it. Why are we not looking at the percentage of those parents that want to actually have their kids? We have taken it completely away from the parents, and the seven of us are sitting here trying to be experts when we don't.
So, and
Why can't the parents make a decision and give them an opportunity to say, this is what we'd like to do with our children?
Sure.
And right now, the only people that are getting what they want are the online people.
So I would argue that the original data at this point in time would be spoiled because was it clear what hybrid one would look like to the parents when they voted? Did they realize that there would be no access to reading specialists? Did they realize that there would be limited specialists?
They wouldn't have their actual teacher. that they
Right.
follow.
But that's not the model we would push forward. That's not hybrid one now. You cannot do that. So you put your kids back in your classroom, you mask up and you go.
So,
Adam, nobody knew what hybrid 1 was going to look like. Nobody knew what hybrid 2 was going to look
but
like.
that's why I'm saying that data is no longer valid. It's spoiled because the situation has changed.
Not spoiled, because when you look at the stats, we're 7 students out of 7,000 plus students are out. 7.
Sure.
Okay, for that, I did ask for another survey and was told no, just as far as time and resources, and it was too close to the first one. I mean, we could be sitting here with that data in front of us.
Okay.
But
I wouldn't have
I'm
said
saying
no to
it's-
another survey.
I understand the fear.
There would be value in sending out a survey that said, if the district moved, would you change to online? And we'd need something like another 700-800 students to get us into the 20s, which would push us closer to where
For what?
Waukee is. Huh?
You're talking 2 students per classroom difference? You said
No,
22 to 24.
That was the start, but they have about 23% of their student body that's then chosen to go online. So they have 7% more than we do.
That's what we don't know, is we don't
But
have.
that's why I'm saying we should need another survey that would tell us, if we chose to go hybrid one, how many would move? Because if it's 70 students,
Okay,
The point
And-
is, it doesn't matter. They're not distancing 6 foot. So it does not matter.
So Tom, are you suggesting if we go to the hybrid one model that we not, since we, like you said, I think you said we can't.
Right, we
get
cannot.
6 feet.
Right. Right, you
Come
put your
back,
kids in,
like
yes, they
before
mask up.
COVID, Before COVID, fill the classroom.
Yeah, and so like they said, they distance when possible. So when there's rooms that allow it, if there's specials, whatever that allow it, that's fine. But yeah, you cannot control the classroom as far as
You gave
6 foot
great
spacing.
statistics 2 meetings ago, how the kids aren't at risk, and I applaud you for that. That was a lot of work on your part. I'm just worried if we do it like you're suggesting, which is a great suggestion. I'm worried about the staff. You know, that's my fear. Because I
Right.
think I give you credit for that the students will probably be good, that's what we all want. I'm just worried about the staff.
Right. I've
Because
thought
they're
about that
not in
too.
that age group.
Yes, because so your staff, one, should be able to distance, right? As far as with their desk and all that, that should be able to keep the 6 foot, they can do their whatever. And then two, they're being exposed to every one of their kids every single week anyway. So I mean, so there is like some inherent risk there, but the fact that they're seeing every single student, and you've read the emails, they're spending so much more time with those students one-on-one and everything. So if you're going to see all of your students every single week, COVID's not a 1-day thing. It's not a 2-day thing, right? It's 4, 10, 20, 30, even as far as viral shedding, whatever. So that risk is still there every single week. All we're doing is saying, hey, the kids are getting closer. The teacher still has the same amount of distance. They can distance in the front of their classroom. They can still go up and down their aisles. Remember, 6 feet for 15 minutes or more. I mean, they can still go and work with their kids and stuff. And there's not going to be that much more exposure per kid, per teacher. Because they're, like I said, the teacher is seeing all of their same students every single week. You know what I mean? So it makes it appear like it's being a safer, because kids are spaced out and I've got 4 to deal with today and I've got 11 to deal with tomorrow, whatever. But you're seeing the same 15 kids in those 2 days. You're seeing them again. You know what I mean? So that exposure is there every single week. So if you had a positive kid that was walking into your classroom every day, you're still exposed to them at least twice a week, 3 times a week. And then based upon the emails and stuff we're saying, you're staying within that distance a lot longer. I'm working with them intensively, way longer, all that. Does that make any kind of sense?
Yes.
I mean, to me, it's like, you know what I mean? So our teachers, yeah, when they need to distance, they can distance,
Right.
that kind of thing. I mean,
And
I don't see
I-
a risk. So,
I'm glad you're part of the board, because we need to be diverse in our thinking, and, you know, we can't be clones with each other, and you bring strong opinions, which I appreciate. I just, being a former teacher, and the fact that I have like every symptom of a person with, I could be the poster guy. You know,
I'm right behind you.
I worry about things like that.
Mhm.
You're right. Kids want to get back. And, you know, Dirk read that line about critical schools as safely, as quickly as possible, which we all want. And I agree. And I was thinking before Lori made the motion that we'd go longer with hybrid too, but, you know, maybe the October date's good, because we obviously need to always evaluate. Because you have good points. I'm glad you're saying them, because you and Brett and everybody else represent a large group of people. I'm just fearful of the staff. I'm feel that if we start, because a lot of the emails I get, and I'm sure you guys get them too, is I'm so stressed out. I know everything's a work in progress. And you clarified something for me, Tom, which I appreciate. Because when you were fighting for hybrid one, I thought we were separating the classrooms, you know,
oh, yeah.
50-50, and I didn't think we had enough staff. That's where I'm coming from.
Right. And yep.
But you're suggesting a whole different deal. And if it's, again, I'm just worried about the staff.
But that isn't what the school district would recommend on hybrid one, is it?
No, the 6
Yeah.
foot distancing,
No,
that hasn't.
it's.
Yeah, I'm
that's
I'm just trying to follow Tom's point, you know, because he's bringing something to the table that I had a different mind thought, you know.
Well,
You
I
agree?
think,
Oh, go ahead.
well, I'm just gonna talk on that hybrid one question, because when we talk about whether it's like a plan that you're talking, or if it's hybrid one, that administration would be recommendation, the teachers are concerned about whether that is the direction they want to go. Obviously, we were told, again, nobody knew exactly what hybrid one was going to be. So, I mean, the plan was to do this, and that, but as they get looking into it, it's not really what it appeared to be. And that's no fault of anybody. It's just, you don't know. And until we get into that, but to sit here and say that, and it kind of answered part of my question of what hybrid one truly is, or the recommendation would be. And if the teachers don't want hybrid one, you know, we're still in another battle with the teachers. We do put them into a hybrid one situation. I don't think there's, I don't know. I mean, how many truly want it? How many don't want it? That's another thing that we don't know. You know, we're getting some emails from teachers that hybrid one is what they want. They don't, you know, the others don't. So those are things that we have to clarify. I'm with Tom. I think, you know, whether you call it hybrid one or if it's business as usual with masks, hand sanitizers, I think that's the route we need to go. I just need to probably clarify have clarified what, if we stay on hybrid 2, what are some of the changes that we're going to make for this next month to satisfy some of those people that don't like it? Because I think that's some of the thing, because hybrid 1, obviously, you know, there's some mixed emotions about that with teachers as well. And families are still concerned. So, I mean, I don't even know if it's 50-50. I couldn't put a percentage on it. I just know the emails that come in, you get one email that says we like it, one says no. Then you can completely get it turned back around. And but if our goal is 100%, that's what we have to figure out, is what does hybrid truly look like? Because right now, I mean, there's still those questions, and again, until you do something, you don't know what you have. And I think that's what Waukees, they've done something, they're doing it. West Des Moines doing it. All these schools are doing it, and you're getting different outcomes for everything. So I don't think we can sit here and say, well, you know, let's just, I'm going to use the word safe. We'll go back to Tom's question of what is safe. I mean, I get it. We're trying to, you know, mitigate the risk. We're trying to keep the teachers, you know, healthy, the kids healthy, everybody healthy. But, you know, until you do something, you don't really know what the outcome is going to be. And we can always go back. And I think Tom said this, you know, at the beginning, if we continue down this route, we get to October 30th, you got the flu season coming up. What's the mixture between flu season and COVID? How are these numbers going to be actually, you know, even separated as far as what COVID is? And, you know, a kid has a sniffle in a room. So those are the things that, you know, obviously are on people's minds. So differentiating, I can't even say the word, separating the two, figuring out what, if it's Tom's plan, a hybrid 1, what is it going to look like? Probably needs to be a discussion.
Sure.
If we're really serious about doing that. So
Before we get into anything else, there's been a misconception both among parents and the staff that I've talked with this week that if we made a decision tonight, that decision takes effect Monday.
Yeah, we
Oh,
need
yeah,
to
no.
make that.
That's ludicrous.
clear.
Right.
Where's the camera? That's not how this works. We'd have to have at least a week, if not 2.
Yep.
To change the way the buildings are laid out, because that's not how this works. So regardless what happens in the next, let's say hour, let's be optimistic. What happens in the next hour, Monday morning is still a day. So
Yes.
So
Yeah, and I've
let's-
asked a few
let's start
teachers the
before
same
we get
thing.
into that.
I do think that's important to know. I think people are worried that, and yes, we've got that discretion, but I just don't think,
It'd be
I can't
irresponsible.
imagine a set of circumstances where we would do that, you know, decide it now, different Monday.
Yeah, that would-
Especially going from this to a different one,
Yeah, because it's
total different one. I imagine it would be at least a couple of weeks.
Yeah, because it's going to be tough. I mean, it's rescheduling, like you said, moving classrooms around. And I asked a few, and they said, hey, a minimum of like a couple of days of planning.
Yeah.
So, because that's redoing
I would
everything
say
as far as.
bar minimum a week, most likely too, because
Yeah.
that allows it to.
Yep.
So I have a few concerns. When we're talking about having kids back in the classroom, I don't like this idea of just doing away altogether with no social distancing at all, because that's not how Waukees doing it. They're doing it when possible. So a lot of their classes still are social distance, except for at the high school, because they have some issues there. But also they're able to do more of that because they have, like I alluded to earlier, a lower percentage of overall students per class because they have a higher percentage of what's online. And I agree, we should do some type of survey to see what change would happen if we should transition to a hybrid 1 model.
we do all, and I guess I'm going to speak on elementary since I think that maybe be the focus. Are we talking whole district, October 30th? We talking elementary, I guess, but can we clarify what October 30th date means for,
Review October, or that's the
The
next time we'll
15th.
review where we're at.
My guess would be we'd review on the 15th because that's our board meeting that would immediately precede the 30th.
Yeah, I would
I
expect it would
think
be.
we know, we know we're getting to the
Yeah.
through October 30th, through, is that the quarter?
Yes, first quarter.
I
First
just think
quarter.
people need some ability to plan, and we can't continue on 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. So I'm looking for a little more stability here.
So my concern would be is that if we have these kids in the classroom, in a lot of the elementary classrooms that I've visited this week, there wouldn't be an opportunity for the teacher to distance. As it is now, yes, they're working more with it, but they're not working, hands-on right with the kid. But they're able to spend more specific time discussing it with the kid and working on the individual work. So I think it's a misnomer to say that intensity means close contact. In elementary school, it's unavoidable. Yes, there's going to be close contact, but I spoke with one of our 5th grade teachers at 4 Mile on Tuesday, that had we been hybrid 1, that classroom would have been gone because one of the associates that was in that classroom tested positive, but because they were able to have 6 foot, Polk County let it slide. I think the teacher told me 6 foot 6 inches was the difference. So 7 inches was the difference between her being quarantined and her being able to continue. If we put this into practice, that's not capable anymore. So we're going to see entire classrooms go down when you have a positive. So instead of seeing one person pop out, you're seeing one person be isolated and 20 from that classroom. And that's at the elementary level.
but,
There is no social
but
distancing.
not everybody can be within 6 feet.
But
So
that's,
how could you even possibly do a whole classroom based off the 6 foot? If I'm within 6 foot of you,
sure.
I
But if
I
we're,
get that, but if Rick's on the other side of the room, why would we quarantine him?
sure. But the problem is what we end up with in some of those elementary schools, you're going to end up with, if we go to traditional model, so none of the social distancing, you've got at least 3 other kids that are usually within a foot. Whatever the difference in desk is, 1.5 feet, 2 feet, whatever the width of the desk is, because they do them in clusters of 4 and something like that. And the other desks aren't 6 feet away. So you've got those ones going as well. And you've got whatever associates that are in there, and you've got whatever teacher that's going to be interacting with them, and that type of problem. And that's where it spirals. And we're already having problem, even in our hybrid 2 model, of having enough subs to make things run. I talked with Blake Peelman today when I was out at Mitchellville, and he was teaching a kindergarten class. I talked with Lori yesterday, and there's already been 2 or 3 times this year where she can't get a sub. How much worse is that if we expand this out? And I get what you're saying. They see the same kids. Whether it's 4 and 11 or 15 in one day. But if we have that 15, there's no longer room in that room, sounds a little silly, for them to actually distance to protect that status quo, to protect that keeping going. So that's what I'm concerned about.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know that I'm willing to say do away with social distancing because for a myriad of reasons. But if we can find creative ways to make things work, I think that's something we need to be looking for. But I would be hesitant to eliminate the one thing that we've got on this nice new CDC chart that keeps us in deep green. I mean, if we get rid of that seating or that 6 feet distance, we now have 1 red and 2 yellows.
Yep.
Which under their observations, we shouldn't be in school. So where do we want to be there? And another thing that we are not in control of, unfortunately, is that our contract tracing is done by Polk County, and they are relentless. They do not pull punches. They are, from what I understand, one of the most voracious of the county health departments, because apparently it's not equal among them. Whether it should be or not, that's somebody else's fight. But I'm hesitant to poke the beast just because things are going well. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I mean-
and that is the big downfall, is the whole contact tracing and the quarantine thing. But when you look at it, I'm saying, hey, we have almost 7,000 students. So if we have to quarantine a 25-person classroom or 12-person or 18-person classroom every once in a while, I mean, that's part of it, right? We're going to educate 99% of our kids. Those 14 go to online. They're not being kicked out. They go to online learning. They come back and we're back in school and going. And it sucks. It's terrible. I don't agree with the contact tracing thing. I don't agree with the quarantines, but that's something else. So hopefully they'll step back like the CDC has a little bit as far as that whole thing. But yeah, that is the one major downside. is the whole quarantine thing. So,
In my mind, and this goes to what I said, what was that, 2 board meetings ago or whatever, when I talked about the 5% as far as moving towards hybrid 1. If we got 2 of these sections in even the light green, I'd be okay with with moving forward and proceeding to find ways to do a more traditional model. I'd still like 3 feet. I don't like it, but that doesn't even come into play until we would at least have 2 of these in the green. And I mean light green. I'm not asking for less than 3% or less than 5 cases per 100,000, but I'm asking for less than 5% because that's the baseline that the CDC has set.
So with that, so we got, I'm assuming all elementaries have the barriers for their desks. So, I mean, there's another precaution that we're putting into the classrooms.
But does Polk County care if we have barriers?
They don't recognize that.
But again, the 6 foot is a recommendation, okay? And that's the key piece is it's a recommendation. Again, it's the controversy always comes is, you know, if you're 6 feet, do you have to really wear a mask? That's the big question. So when you're inside that 6 foot is when they're saying it's really highly recommended that you wear a mask. You can't social distance. So I guess that's where I get confused is because if you can't social distance, which is 6 foot, you better have a mask on. So
Dirk, what do attorneys say about the recommendations of 6 foot distancing? And then if we were to have a staff or a student pass away from
To maintain the distance of the
the
6 feet
required
between
what's
people.
been
I'm
displayed?
reading that
Yeah,
sheet that I just gave you today too. So I don't necessarily agree that that has changed. I don't read that as changed. And if with this, it also talks about the mitigation strategies. It's critical to ensure the use and layering of, meaning using multiple strategies. And you see which ones they've identified as important as the bullet points on that. Yeah.
Well, as a lawyer, I hate to say this, but it's true, had the pioneers, settlers, whatever the appropriate term is now, had listened to their lawyers, they never would have crawled over the Allegheny Mountains and settled the rest of the country. That's just a lawyer response. I'm just laying
well,
it out there. I gave away
and
the
they're-
secret code, but yes. We'll take you to the safest route possible. Yeah.
well, since we really, the conversations obviously, I think has to shift here because now if we're hybrid 2 obviously is what the recommendation is, but so for me as a person that's probably going to vote against hybrid 2, what does hybrid look like because before we were told that there was going to be specials in hybrid 1. That's not possible from what I'm gathering. So some of the original things that we were told probably are not going to be able to be done. We're going to have other teachers that have other jobs go back into the classroom, which will, it sounds like, are going to take away from some of the specialties. So can you kind of give us a rundown of what hybrid 1 looks like right now if there was a vote to be for that?
Sure. You know, first of all, there would be that it's the law. I mean, that's not an option, but it would look different, and that's for sure than it does right now, or than it would normally. At the elementary level, if it were to be today, we would need to add 16 sections across the 8 buildings, and then obviously staff those 16 sections. Most likely, that would be with people like reading specialists, or Title I teachers, or specialist teachers on some sort of rotating basis where they could teach in the classroom at some point and then teach their special at some point. I can't tell you exactly how that would work. Each building has kind of got their own contingency plans for things like that. So that's what we're looking at there. When you get to secondary, it's a little bit different because now you run into licensure issues. Not just anybody can teach a chemistry class. You must be certified in chemistry. And so you've got differences there. And like we've said, It's impossible for us right now from 6th grade on up to maintain the mitigation factors in hybrid 1.
So how are other schools getting away with this? I mean, it's not a must, it's a recommendation. I mean, it says social distancing to the extent possible. So I guess I'm not sure why we say, well, we'd have to break into 16 sections. We'd have to do this. No, I mean, we don't. That's why I'm kind of wondering why we're saying that we have to do this.
Because
And this is not something we have to do.
Public safety and
So how are other schools getting away with this?
What do you mean getting away?
I mean, how are other schools being successful in not following this?
They made their decision to not follow.
So it's a decision.
in favor of what they consider a more normal education product.
We just heard that the CDC that said the masks are going to be a better mitigating factor than the
That's
vaccine.
not what Redfield said. What Redfield said when he was testifying to Congress was that you may end up having a larger percentage from masks as a safety than what you get from vaccines, because vaccines can waver. It's not an absolute. He said that's a good possibility. And he's not wrong. But the problem is masks aren't 100%. They are
Nothing's
one
100%.
layer of a factor that the best thing we can do is social distance. And that's been consistent throughout.
Right, they say 6 foot, and now they've backed off and said to the extent possible. And they
If
said if it creates a
possible.
hardship,
It's possible.
so they said if it creates a hardship, then wear a mask. I mean, it's that simple. It creates a
Define
hardship.
hardship. What
Classroom
do they
is a
define as
hardship.
hardship?
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out why education is not essential right now. I don't know why we're arguing points as far as, hey, we have to do this, we have to do this. We don't. It's what we think is best for the kids. Period.
I'm just going to say that I appreciate everything that the staff and the administration and the bus drivers, the kitchen staff, everyone that is doing everything they can to get some semblance of what's normal right now when things are not normal. And I appreciate everything everyone's doing to educate each and every one of our students to the best of their ability in a very, very difficult situation. And I appreciate what all the parents are having to go through, the stress that they're all under, and the stress the administration is under. This is not anything that anyone asked for. This is not normal to anyone. And this is not what anyone asked to have happen to our students or our staff. But I appreciate what every single one of you and everyone out there is doing to make the best of a very, very difficult situation that is really too bad. And it's awful, and no one disputes that, but we need to keep educating our kids the safest, best way we can until we can and get things under control and the numbers. And I am one person that wants everyone all in, but I'm happy that hybrid 2, we get better each week. Things are going smoother each time. I know it's not perfect. I know everyone is not getting everything that they need right now. But we're getting there slowly but surely. And the most important thing is our kids have school right now, and we're not all stuck at home in their house 24/7. So thank you to everybody.
So on hybrid 2 model, what changes are we going to make to improve our out of school learning at that time? Because that is a concern.
Yep. Dr. Latham and I talked a little bit about that today, and I think she's on.
There she is.
Hiding the dog. Yes, and thank you for that question. And I want to go back to what Lori said, is that it is something that we're working on, and it is getting better each week. Having said that, we know that there are definitely some areas that we can take to improve in hybrid 1 as well. We do use the gradual release instructional model. And so we're really trying to intensify instruction on the days that we're learning at school. to be able to have those focus lessons from the teacher and that guided instruction. And then to move that into learning at home through having those opportunities to maybe collaborate with other students and or do their independent work. Some of the glitches that we've had have just been getting a system in place for where we submit assignments and what that looks like. And I do think we're making improvements in that area as well. We moved to more common platforms this year than what we had last spring when we had the unfinished instruction. So we will continue to work on a model that intensifies the instruction when they are with teachers and provides very clear guidelines on what that looks like for when they are learning at home, and to really up the amount of feedback that we're giving students in regards to their learning, and to be able to give them that feedback that takes them to that next step as we move forward. And again, we are seeing improvements each week as we move forward, and we're also committed to continuing that improvement as we go along based on the feedback that we get from students and their families.
Dr. Latham, this is Rick Powell. To follow up on what Brett asked, I was talking to an instructional coach in elementary, and she's working with the online students, and she just feels like she doesn't have the best equipment to do that with. Is that something, I don't know how soon we can get some of the funding from the referendum, but I know that upgraded technology was part of that. And my second question is to anybody, to you or to Dirk or anybody, when we do have staff that are quarantining, they haven't tested positive, so they're just in the quarantine stage. Are they being asked to do the online teaching portion so that the teachers in the elementary school especially don't have to teach and do the online? Or are we using some of the quarantine teachers for that purpose since they haven't tested positive?
And I'll answer the first part of that question, the first part of the question and part of the second part of the question. And I'm sure Mr. Horton will have some things he could add to that. But yes, you're right on the technology. Sorry. And we've been working with Jason Kurth and have some document cameras on order, as well as the new model of Chromebooks that allows the teacher to see a split screen so that they can see both the Zoom camera and the students at the same time. So Jason's been working very closely with that remote learning, our teacher leadership team, to improve the technology. We also ordered some whiteboard easels and different things like that. And our first batch of supplies to support online learning came in this week. So we've been distributing that out to teachers and recognizing that we do need to add to that to support remote learning. The second part of that, as teachers go into quarantine, we haven't, we're not in a current situation with the elementary teachers, but if we do get some who are in quarantine, we are doing fast testing right now. And should we have some in that situation, then they will be dispatched to help with the remote assessment as we go through.
Thank you.
Good evening, board. One thing I would add to that, when we have a teacher who's in quarantine and who is not COVID positive, what we're finding is that these particular teachers, they do teach online, but it's not in the online program like I think you might be referring to, Director Powell. What they're doing is they're zooming back into the classroom to co-teach with the sub who is there, supervising students and working with students in their absence. So I was hoping this wouldn't be too confusing, but yes, they're Zooming, but not with the students that you think they're Zooming with. They're going back to the class that they just left and that they're quarantined from. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
So I guess back to the original question, as far as improving the hybrid 2 days off, what is the real expectation of the student and I guess and the teacher that depends on what email you read, what teacher you talk to. It seems like each building seems like they're different. Some teachers get on there, well, some don't even have time to get on there in a sense, because, you know, they're already dealing with the kids there, but some are given an assignment, or they're just previously given an assignment. So doesn't seem like it's consistent from some of the things that we're reading and hearing. So how can we make the consistency better and more time valuable to these parents? The other issue is, you know, I mean, when these kids that are home that don't have the parents that feel that they can give the education needs to the children that the teacher can, obviously. I mean, how do we balance all this?
And that's a really good question. And, you know, Brett, we can systemize it to a point, and that's something that we've really tried to do, especially for parents who have multiple children. But just like if we were everyone back to school, what it looks like in each classroom is going to be different. I think the difference of these two is that the teacher is guiding it rather than having that go back and forth from school to home. So those are some of the things that we're negotiating back and forth. We do recognize that students are not all of them with parents on the day that they're learning from home. So again, we do try to maximize the amount of independent practice that students are doing on their learning at home days, and maximize the teaching types of things where they would need a teacher for guided instruction. And then we also have flipped models where they would have the teacher lecture, that if they needed to go back and review some of the things that the teacher did, they would have that flipped model to go back and review that as well. So, you know, in terms of concept, again, I think everyone is on the same page in terms of maximizing the time with the teacher and maximizing independent practice. In terms of application as to what that looks like in each subject and each grade level, I would say that that varies depending on that particular grade level and the standards that they happen to be working on at that particular time.
One of the other questions that I have is as far as the absentee thing that was brought up, as far as kids being counted absence for whatever reason on the online piece of it. What feedback are you getting on that, or are you getting any? I bring it up because it's in some of the emails that we've had, and
yeah, is that we actually have been talking about the absenteeism rate, and we have about 5 or 6 factors that we consider for counting a student as present in terms of participation, either in the remote learning model or in their day of learning at home. And so what we're really working on is clarity, that for each class, students have absolute clarity as to what constitutes attendance for that class. The second thing is flexibility. If a student isn't able to attend a class live, that they can do it in a remote way. And then the other is grace. So we've been giving some grace as we go through and moving to a more standard gathering of assessment as we go through. And in order to provide that clarity and flexibility and grace for those in the remote learning, we are collecting that attendance once a week. So we'll do it for all 5 days, but we're going to give kids more time to meet the requirements for participation on that day in case they weren't home and they needed to watch something that was videoed the next day. They will have 5 days to show that they had 5 days of participation. So we're getting that put into place. The Department of Education will have a webinar tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to provide a little more guidance in regards to that. But as I read through the guidance that they shared today, our model very much aligns with that.
so I'm assuming at some point, I'm not sure where we're at with the grades or midterm or however we call it nowadays, but is there going to be some kind of grace with these grades? And obviously, you know, teachers are cramming 5 days of education into 2, And I really don't even count Wednesday as a day because it's just more of a recap. But, you know, when the struggles, they're trying to get 5 days in that 2 days. I mean, the kids aren't really going to grasp this stuff as quick. I know we've talked about that because we have lower cohorts. I think that's the word you use, that it's supposed to be less time with a child. But do we really think, I mean, I guess I have a tough time following that because it all depends on what students you have and how they're comprehending it is how fast you can go, just like you would if you had the 25.
Exactly. And, you know, we are thinking that if, you know, we might have a class where we do a lesson and then we work with some small groups and then we have some independent reading. So the day at school, we do all of those things, but the independent reading is saved for the next day at home. So that allows us to intensify that instruction by using that day of learning at home, but it also with the smaller class sizes allows us to intensify in both ways. One thing I'll share with you, Brett, is that over the summer, we met with model teachers and lead teacher teams, and the way our curriculum units are designed is we have priority standards and supporting standards. And so over the summer, what we did is we also identified critical standards, knowing that we would have some unfinished instruction and not sure what pathway we might be entering in and out of as the school year goes on. So when we look at grades, we will still be maintaining that high expectation, but the grace is that we will be looking at critical standards rather than the priority standards. So we'll not have quite as many standards to look at. And the other piece of flexibility will be around the amount of time to show evidence of those standards.
Is that all your questions, Brett?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was more just of going back to trying to answer some questions on where I am on the vote, because when you cram 5 days in the 2, it is a struggle, and there's a lot of emails out there that, and you can't base everything on a few emails of what the whole district's going through, but it does put some concern in there as far as what standards we're setting now. I mean, I get it. We talk about rigor all these years, and it took me a long time to really get to the point of, at one point you get tired of, what's this rigor? What, all the, you know, and I'm finally catching on to it. I get what rigor is, but it's like, we talk about rigor, and is this now a time, how is that rigor really affecting, are we pushing too much now because of that 5 days into 2 days? So yeah, I think kind of gives a little bit guidance. So
I think what I heard you say is that rigor is one of your favorite words. That's going to be my takeaway, Brett.
well, I forgot some of the other ones that you talk about, but yeah, rigor is definitely in my vocabulary now.
There you go.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say a few things. I mean, I think that the idea that we're giving some flexibility and grace is awesome, because I think one of the concerns we have heard is, you know, about attendance and maybe some lack of flexibility in some areas where maybe a student couldn't work on something during the day and they had to do it in the evening, and that counted against them. So I'm glad that we're being flexible and mindful of that. You know, and also just to piggyback too on some things that we were just talking through with Brett. You know, I've heard everything from this hybrid 2 model is a complete and utter disaster and failure, all the way to it is allowing the teacher to provide maybe even more and faster instruction. So I've heard the whole gamut of success and failure, and I'm sure there's truth in a lot of the statements. I mean, it's not the same experience for everybody. My kids' experience with hybrid 2 is not the same as everybody else's experience either. So I think there are definitely some advantages to hybrid 2 from a safety standpoint. It's allowing us to distance, and our numbers are, I think, really showing that it's working for us in that way. I was curious, I was going to bring this up earlier, but I was just so engrossed in your conversation over there. Do we have any idea from a quarantine standpoint for us, not for other districts, in terms of what the numbers might have looked like if we were not social distance?
You know, I would have to talk to our nurses about that. I don't off the top of my head have that information. I know that each case is specific and they look at the details in that. So the what might have's, I don't know.
Okay. I figure it's probably hard to say. I have heard anecdotally that there have been multiple cases where we've heard from, say, Polk County Health that said, if you wouldn't have been doing this, there would have been more quarantine. I just don't know.
Yeah, that's accurate.
From a quantitative standpoint, what does that mean? Is that a few more kids, or is it entire classrooms, or what would that look like? I mean, I guess the way I'm looking at this, you know, the graph that you provided, looking at the beginning of the school year compared to now, we definitely saw an uptick, and then it seems like it's come back down a bit. So, I mean, the numbers where we started and the numbers where we are now, in terms of like positivity and stuff, seem like we've gotten closer to where we started. I mean, is that accurate to what you have here?
Yeah, that's all the data right there.
Okay. So, I mean, the biggest concern I have really, I mean, looking at our factors, looking at this new CDC guidance, is probably that you're saying that we're in the highest risk category in terms of number of cases per 100,000 over the last 14 days. So we're not like a little bit high. We're in the top tier. We're in the red zone on that particular item. So, and that's something I know we can't control, and it doesn't seem like we're contributing to that as a school district, but it's a concern that if more of it's out there, then more of it's likely to make its way into our schools and spread from there. So, I mean, that's definitely a concern. I mean, that and the quarantine, I think, are the two biggest factors that I'm looking at. And I agree with Tom on the distance thing, where, you know, we can't split classrooms and have 16 new classrooms set up and take all of our reading specialists and have them teaching classes. I know it's not all, but I just feel like that would really stretch people thin. I mean, we just reintroduced specials a couple weeks ago, which has given a lot of teachers some break in planning time, and that's been a huge benefit. And so if we have to backtrack on that, it doesn't seem to me like it's worth moving into a hybrid 1 model. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking more from the terms of when is it safe to drop that 6-foot hard rule, and not to get rid of all social distancing, but to say, you know, when possible, if we can't 6-foot social distance in a particular classroom, but we can 3-foot or 4-foot, then we'll do that, and we'll keep the masks and we'll keep all the other procedures in place. But until we feel like we're comfortable doing that, it doesn't seem like hybrid 1 is a feasible model.
But we don't know what hybrid 1 looks like. So, I mean, I think that's still a question that nobody knows what it looks like. We're assuming it's not going to work. We're assuming.
Let's talk about it.
Huh?
That's what we're supposed to do. Let's talk about it. So,
Oh, no, not yet.
I'm trying to
Well-
get you all in.
so from what Dirk has said, the district administration recommendation would still be 6 feet. So under that, the hybrid 1 is what we have been talking about, that it would be 16 new sections, that it would be impossible to do at the high school. It would be impossible to do at the 6th grade center and the junior high. So if that's the district's recommendation, we would have to be willing to chuck that out. So from there, I guess we take the onus on ourselves to just kind of create a world, as it were. I'm not willing to go traditional seating. That's negligent. That's asking for problems. If and when Polk County, or if we get more specific data, which I would absolutely, if anyone from Polk County is listening, I would absolutely welcome data specific to our district so that we could make better decisions. Was that good and clear and loud? Good.
Zip codes
Okay.
would be good.
Zip codes would be good, because I as I've said to you, all of you at different points in times, if we could take that snapshot, I bet we would be lower, but we don't have that data to work with. And I'm not a gambler. So at what point in time do we feel like we can start backing away from some of our mitigating factors, which in this case, the distancing would be the first one. Talking with some of our teachers, and you guys have gotten the emails, and I've talked to a lot of them in person as well, that 6 feet is very important to them. They are not willing to negotiate on that for a lot of our teachers.
Not all of them.
Well, no, but it's never gonna be
Yeah,
all
but
of
you
them.
can't say, you can't put, just like saying all teachers are against hybrid one. No, there's some teachers that
Oh, yeah,
want hybrid one. There's some teachers that don't. Just like there's some parents that like it and there's some parents that don't. So to
Absolutely.
sit here and say teachers, you can't.
and I didn't
Blanket
say all. I
statement.
said there are some that's not up for negotiation. And I'll be honest with you, I was out at Mitchellville today. They're much more inclined to like a move to hybrid one because they can actually do that in their building without sacrificing anything. They don't lose any reading specialists because they don't have to break into other classes. Their 5th grade, I believe, is what Mr. Keelman was telling me, would have to move into the gym. But that would be about the extent of it. So their staff, after talking with them and after talking with their principal, is in favor of that. But after talking with, Lori at Centennial, or talking with, Steve up at Altoona, or talking with a bunch of these different ones, they're not. Because they would have to make certain sacrifices. So
Question on your, because I guess I just am having a tough time absorbing. I get what you're saying, both of you and Chad are saying, as far as now's not the time, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna argue that. Obviously, the stats are there, but what happens next year if this continues all the way through? Because this is a virus isn't going anywhere. CDC said, I didn't listen to the thing, but Tom said that masks, I heard something related to it, but I didn't watch it. Masks are probably going to be better than the vaccine. So if next year at this time, or beginning of the school year, when we come to summer and the numbers are still what they are today because the virus is still there, it's still attacking people, are we just going to never go back to traditional school? Or I guess, because at some point we have to say, we've got to try something. Because what if the vaccine doesn't come? I mean, they're saying November. I mean, could be December, it could be January. Maybe the vaccine comes out and people say, I'm not taking that vaccine. What does the school district do then?
same thing we do with measles and mumps and.
Yeah, but I think the point here is how long are we going to go with this to say now's not the time because we're in a high risk? Well, if you look at the flu numbers every year, those numbers are they're high. Everybody, people get the flu, and so I guess that's just the thing that runs through my mind is how do we say this is not going to just drop off a cliff and disappear? So I guess if somebody can answer that, for me,
I think there's a point in time where we're going to have to move back to full in person, and it's going to be a time before everybody's comfortable because we not everybody's ever going to be comfortable with it. So we're going to have to make that move before everybody is comfortable with it. Like we're not going to ever get a survey back from every parent saying, yeah, I'm comfortable. Or every teacher is saying, let's do it. So we will have to make that move at some point. My thought looking at the numbers though is maybe this isn't quite the time yet. And I think it would be good for us to figure out what our decision matrix is. I know there's a lot of factors, but if we're going to base it on the CDC one, what zone do we need to be in on this for it to make sense for us to do that and then move forward with it? I mean, right now saying that we're in the highest risk of transmission in school in terms of cases per 100,000, that's not a very positive way to look at or positive thing. But I do agree that, this is around for next year. I mean, there will be some immunity. I think just in general with the spread that we have now, plus the vaccine, plus masks, and there's some thought that even wearing the mask, if you're exposed, you get exposed to a lower dose, potentially you build up an immunity to it. So, I mean, I think it's gonna slow, and I think we're gonna get these numbers down. I mean, we're already seeing our positivity percent is dropping back down. So is it in 2 weeks? Is it in a month? Is it 2 months? I don't know the answer to that, but
And I guess that's part of my question is like, so is the 7%, is that the traditional percent it's going to be for the rest of our lives? I mean, at this point, we don't know. And how long do we have to wait? We're going to be back here again in October 30th or whatever the meeting date that I guess we'd have to make that
15th.
decision before that.
The 15th.
But I just throw that out there because I think that's what people are on the other side of the spectrum that want their kids back in school are probably asking is when. And the 7 of us obviously have to be the ones that make that if we're still on the board at that time. So we don't have to make a decision today, but obviously you gotta, think about that because our job is to educate these kids. As you've seen by some of the emails, I mean, I would probably say, it is 50-50. I mean,
Yeah, pretty close.
I mean, I didn't go counting, but so.
Dirk, I've got a question. I don't think this has really come up, and it was something I guess that you were talking about, Adam. Has there been any thought that we might do something different for different buildings, or is that too much to deal with administratively if you're doing something different for a Mitchellville or Runnels versus Altoona, Willowbrook,
No,
Clay?
I think people would be open to that. I mean, from our side for sure. I mean, if you think back to our original recommendation clear back in August, we had a difference for elementary versus, so it's not a whole lot different than that.
I mean, I've not said a whole lot. I think as president, I like to just have the board facilitate the conversations. The board members know I've been wanting to get back to, to a hybrid one. And yes, I think it's true. We didn't understand what that would look like. Adam, you were saying some things that make sense to me, why we wouldn't know exactly what it would look like, because we don't know how many people would maybe decide to take their kids totally online. That might free up some room. I get it says as 6 feet or as possible, but apparently the Polk County, they're getting their tape measure out and it's 6 foot. And I was all for, hey man, these numbers, they were going the wrong direction last time. I understood that. Then they've kind of sifted back down. But when I heard there were two different things that troubled me. I've been watching West Des Moines. I'm an East Sider. I grew up here, graduated from here, attended school here. I've got the East Side chip. I'm like, gosh darn, Waukee and West Des Moines, why can't we do what they're doing? We're every bit as good or better than those schools, and here they are. But West Des Moines was going along. They had a whole building, I think, go down, because of the 6 foot thing. And yes, there's more kids getting educated, and so you're kind of weighing that out. Okay, well, they were only out for 2 weeks or whatever, but that's obviously a bad thing to have happen, a whole building. But those are some of the things you run with. And the thing with Waukee, and I'd be curious, since you've done some looking into it, the thing that I heard Waukee was doing is they were doing this round robin thing,
Which is
almost like they're gaming the thing. Oh, well, they're exercising. Really? Where they're pinwheeling these kids around inside of the 50, is it? It's
15 minutes. Yeah.
guideline.
Yep.
To try to, which I get, they're trying to keep it going. But I mean, that almost, I'm envisioning a pinwheel where you're spreading this stuff all over the place,
Well, and there's a discussion. One of the reasons that we need to have masks regardless of the distance is there was a study, I believe, out of Chicago Medical, which talked about because of the ventilation in some of these old buildings, because we're not opening up windows, once it's in the air, it just swirls.
Oh.
So if you're sitting under a vent, don't take off your mask. So, there was some of that discussion about where that's at. And then there's other discussions about whether it's truly droplet or whether it's aerosolized and everything else. It's going to continue to change, and we're going to have to update and run with it. You know, one of the things I think if we're looking at this as far as when we're comfortable, first and foremost for me, we can't have any of those sections in the red, period. There's 3 of them. We can't have any of them in the red. Right now we do. When am I comfortable starting moving towards hybrid 1? We don't have any in the red, and we've got at least 2 of those in the green. And we're close. We're about 2% short on that.
Do you remember what they call that when you have all those cases?
All those.
The case-demic?
Yeah. That's
I knew you'd
what
like that,
that guy
Adam.
called it, but he's functional medicine believes in just how.
But listen, the one thing about those cases though, that's 0.27% of people. But what happened when we had these outbreaks in Iowa City and Ames and all
Sure.
that? What happened to their health?
Sure.
We did not see a corresponding increase. That was, you know, I mean, they went up slightly, yes, just like you would expect, but nothing even remotely close. So you have these cases, and that's why I look at that and it's fine, but 270, and your positivity rate keeps going down.
Sure. And
You're getting more cases per 100,000 because we're testing all these people and they're popping up more positive. And now they're talking about tests saying, the type of test you're giving kind of may
the
impact
PCR
what
versus the
results
antigen.
are.
Absolutely. That there's
But-
too high.
Right. So that's as far as an indicator, it's not a know all, do all, anything. We could be,
But the problem
1,000.
is that the CDC, which is the expert division of the U.S., says that it's something we should be looking at.
right, something. I'm just saying it's not like it's,
So, but they've given us 3, okay? But in only one of those 3, and it's the one that we can control, being the factors we're taking to mitigate, are we in a good area to move forward? The 2 that we can't control, we're not in a good area to move forward. We're in a moderate and a high risk.
what are you talking about? We cannot control the cases per 100,000.
That I'm saying we can't.
Right.
I'm saying we can't control
It
positivity
has
rate.
nothing to do with
Now,
us.
if you'd like to help control positivity rate, wear your mask when you go to Hy-Vee or to Fairway or to Adventureland or out,
But think about a crowd of 100,000 people and you have
which
270
there
of them that are
shouldn't be
positive.
100,000 people
No, I'm just
anyway.
saying you have 270 positive in a crowd of 100,000.
Sure.
Does that worry you?
Absolutely.
No.
Depending on what it actually is. What are you talking about here? Because if you're talking about a crowd of 100,000 people, which 270 of them have the ability to spread it to the other 100,000, and you've got currently listed with those that have caught it and have tested positive a 2.96 death rate. Okay, yeah, that's what it currently is in the United States. It's 2.96 is what the death rate is for those that have been identified as positive. Now, the CDC has speculated that it could be as low as 1%. So even then, you're talking about killing 1,000 people. So yes, the deaths of 1,000 people because of 271 would worry me. This isn't the flu that has a 0.1%. This is something different.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely something different. If you have comorbidities, right?
No, that's just straight across. Straight across.
No, the death rate on straight COVID was like 0.03.
No. The problem is they haven't broken it down that.
So
When they're actually talking about, when you're talking about across the board, huh?
I'm just,
I just,
Okay.
It
Go ahead-
feels
go
like we're
ahead and finish.
digressing here a
We
little
are.
bit.
So yes, it would still worry me.
I had a question. You had more, Chad?
No, I just thought we should kind of move on with our discussion.
Joe Ellen, and I don't know if you're the right person for this, and if not, you can direct me to whoever. I worry quite a bit about our staff and how they're doing and what they're doing, and I'm just wondering what the feedback is. And maybe Dirk, it might be you. I don't know, what is the feedback from our teachers that are in the room? How are they doing with this, trying to cram 5 days into 2? And I mean, they seem to do, I'm always amazed. They don't complain, not, at least not to board members, not to me in the emails. I mean, there's some, but not hardly any. They're just like, here's what our preference would be, but we'll do whatever we got to do. But what are you hearing, and what feedback are you getting? How are they holding up, I guess?
Very similar to what you just described. It is stressful and it's different. I have always said, I've been in education 38 years and I've never had a year like this one. So anytime that you're kind of out of your comfort zone, that's going to cause stress, along with the health and safety stresses that go along with that. Having said that, they are doing whatever it takes to make it happen for kids. And the other thing is, there's a lot of nervousness going into school, but they were very happy to see the kids when they came back. So I think having the kids and seeing them, and I think Lori mentioned earlier, none of us want it to look like it does right now. But if it keeps us from going full continuous learning and at least seeing the kids, when we can, that is a preferred model. So I think when the kids came back, that improved things a lot. I think they're tired. I think they're working really hard. And, before we put specials back in, it was from the time they walked into the door until the time that they left. But I also see that we're starting to settle into as much of a routine as we could in very unusual times that change a lot. So I still see them doing everything that they possibly can to make it work for kids.
Thank you. That's helpful. I mean, and just so it's clear to the public that's listening, the administration, they make recommendations on most items that are before the voting items before the board. They made one here. Lori made her motion. When they made the recommendation, it was not a date certain. Lori, when she made the motion, added the date, so there would be a date certain. And did I hear that is the quarter end?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was. I wasn't certain, and I understand the motion that's been made, and there is some benefit, I suppose, to, hey, we've got into a groove. Are you going to upset us? I don't like the idea of going clear to the end of October. I understand the motion that's been made because maybe this data would move in that time. But having heard the motion, I understand it. And so
How many weeks is that from now?
I can't count. Is it like 6?
6 weeks.
Is it 6 weeks?
Ish?
5 or 6? It's one of the two.
Oh,
Yeah. 6
So, I mean,
weeks.
if we're talking about, I think we all kind of conceded that we would need at least 1 to 2 weeks to get this, to change gears.
I would agree with that.
I mean, it's 4 weeks is what we're talking about. I mean, that's essentially what we've got 4 weeks until our next board meeting, or until the 15th, not our
Right.
next board meeting, but the meeting we
Yes.
would truly discuss.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we're
that
not,
makes it a little more palatable.
yeah, we're not really giving anything up there. So question that I'm running into and I've seen concerns about from parents and everything else is, why do at the junior high and high school level campus versus Canvas, and why some teachers are using one and others are using the other, and some are using email and some are using smoke signals? But why do we have so many different ways of communication, and is there any way we can streamline that for sake of our parents?
Well, all teachers are using both Canvas and Campus. So Campus, and I wish they didn't sound so much like, Infinite Campus is our student information system. That's where we put all the enrollment information. That's where the state extracts the data for state reporting. So that's where we put all the indicators, the numbers, the different things that we have to do for state reporting. Canvas is our learning management system. That's where you're going to go to see your syllabus and your unit design and your assignments and your quizzes and your discussion boards and your forums. So that's, if you've ever taken a college course, Canvas is similar to what we would say is Blackboard. So the learning management system has all the content where the student goes to get their content. That then passes into Infinite Campus, which records their grades. And that's the information then that parents will see. So there are 2 different systems. They do 2 different things. And I have yet to see a system that, I would love to have a system that did both of those within one umbrella. And we just haven't seen that yet.
Has there been any discussion about streamlining, or at least for this next 4 to 6 week period that we're talking about, having our elementary schools, between the 8 of them, discuss what's worked as far as assignments, what's not, so they can kind of work towards a better model, and then kind of trying to figure out a way to apply that to our 6 through 12 model as well?
Yeah, that's as we meet with the remote learning teachers and as we meet with the principals and we meet with group, that's almost a constant. What are the celebrations? What are the things that are working? Where are the bumps in the road? And what can we put into place to help move past those? So yes, that's been an ongoing piece. And you're right, we'll probably have a more formal data collection on that as we move past these next few weeks.
So I know that and I'm sorry guys, but I'm can. So I know that there's different recommendations for the amount of time that different age groups of children should have for the at-home days. Can you just run through those real quick so that parents have that for what they should expect versus what they might have expected?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I can
I'm
certainly,
sorry, I put you on the spot.
I can certainly share it with you because we do have, I think it starts at about 30 to 60 minutes for pre-K and K and moves up to the 2 hour mark. So I will certainly share that document with the board. It is on our website and it's what to expect in online learning.
Chad is Johnny on the spot over here. I mean, he's got it right in his, he's better prepared than any of us.
There
So-
you go. Thank you, Chad.
Pre-K, 20 minutes a day, minimum up to 60 minutes max. Recommended length of sustained attention, 3 to 5 minutes. K or kindergarten, 30 minutes minimum, up to 90 minutes at max, 3 to 5 minutes sustained attention. First and second grade, 45 minutes minimum, 90 max, 5 to 10 minutes sustained attention. 3 to 5 or third grade to fifth grade, 60 minutes minimum, 120 max, with 10 to 15 minutes of sustained attention. 6 through 8 per class, 15-minute minimum, total of 90 minutes minimum, maximum 30 minutes per class, up to 180 minutes. And then it says attention span, one subject area or class at a time. And then 9 through 12 is 20 minutes per class, up to a total of 120 minutes at minimum per day, or 45 minutes per class, up to 270 minutes per day maximum, and one subject area per class. And I'm sure that came out clear as mud, but it's posted on our website, you said, Joellen?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So
I just have a request. So earlier it was mentioned about maybe having another poll, if you will, or survey, surveying the parents, where last time it was surveyed on all person, online, H1 and H2. Since our goal, that's what I hear everybody saying, is our goal is to get back to all in person, whatever we want to call it when we get to that point. I don't even want to use H1 because things are going to change. So doing something of an all in person, if the administration would put together, I guess, what their H1 would look like, I guess. So one, teachers know, parents know, we know, and then the survey would be, I guess, in person versus online, and that would help us give our numbers of who would want to be online and who truly wants to be in person. Doesn't mean that H2's out of the question, I guess, but it just gives us an idea, because obviously the board, it seems like majority of the board is at H2. So it would kind of give the board an idea of what families are really wanting an in-person and what the percentage of that online would be. And I think that's the only way we're going to really get a good grasp of what the future can look like, I guess, if anybody's interested in it.
Don't we already know the online?
no, because
Because
well, keep in
it
mind,
was only 12% when the original.
and we're now at 16. So I mean, the original numbers are gone. They
Right.
don't count for nothing.
Right.
Here's the issue that I would run into. I would like to know what the percentage, if we chose a hybrid one model, whatever that ended up being, would choose to go online. But I think even that would be flexible based on what our hybrid one model is. Because if I'm understanding Dirk correctly, the administration is not willing to budge on 6 feet, which means there is no hybrid model one that works for 6 through 12, period. And the hybrid model that would work for K through 5 would be 16 new sections, plus or minus how many of our kids choose online, plus or minus how many kids come into the district, plus or minus how many kids decide to come back because they're allowed to come back at the quarter mark from online. So for whatever families choose to come back. So it's all speculative as far as what that looks like. I think what we would have to decide first is which hybrid model in terms of hybrid one would we be proposing? Because that would change it. And
That's what I just said, is if the administration will put together what they believe is a hybrid one that they want to submit, it's not set in stone, but at least gives everybody an idea of what the future looks like. So Yeah, I thought that's what I said, but maybe I didn't.
No, but my concern is that there is no hybrid model one then for 6 through
It's
12.
whatever administration comes up and says, this is what our hybrid one is going to look like. Because right now it's changed even from what we originally were proposed to hybrid one being. Obviously, we've learned that some of it's not possible, just as Dr. Lupnick said, that there will be specials. What do those specials look like? It gives time for the schools to look at. I'm sure they've probably already done it. We just don't know about it, but what teachers actually have to do it. Because I know when I first went and visited schools, each school was different on how they were going to put that plan in place. Some teachers were going to have to go to 2 classrooms. So what is the actual plan? And then what do the families want versus would they be interested in going to a hybrid one? How many is going to go online? I think we already know where we're at as far as the board on hybrid 2, so I don't think it even needs to be in the survey. The question is do you support going back to school 100%? And how many would do online? Because you can always come back to H2 if that's what the board decides, because we know what that looks like. We don't
So-
know what H1 really looks like.
So are you proposing the survey be based on this new definition of hybrid one? So,
Whatever the administration says, this is our H1 model, what we're would propose October 30th,
Basically K through 5.
or high school, or whatever they choose to do.
But
'cause
that's
Would have
what
to
I
be
was
like
trying to say.
normal school with masks, is what we'd have to say.
Say that
We'd
again?
have to say like normal classrooms with masks and social distancing when possible. That's what we'd have to put it out. Because I don't think there's a person here that'd say
Well, I think
16.
that's what, yeah, I would
You
agree with that, but I think in reality, I think that's not what administration can do. So I guess I just want to know because some of the teachers that have emailed us, and I think everybody got the same emails, that the concerns is if it's the reading specialist or the math, I forget title or whatever the specialties are, the PE teacher, music, reading specialist, what teachers are going to be affected? How can you still do those things if there's specials that have to be required by law? Those are the things that we don't know. Maybe some of you do. I guess I haven't asked deep enough into that as.
I think we say, we just
Well,
put it out there as.
But each
as-
school that I went to, that I did visit, they were different.
Yeah, no, every school
So
has its
it
own
wasn't,
plan.
it wasn't even the same. And I think that's what we need to have too, is consistency as far as, should we have one teacher in 2 classrooms if it's a hybrid? Because I think that is very.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's all terrible.
If I had to go back and forth, I'm going to be, what did I just talk to this group about or whatever? I mean, and there's other issues. So I think that needs to be set down for the board because it's hard for us to sit here and make decisions. I can't go and talk to every single teacher. I can't visit every single school when we get ready to vote because things change with them as well. So we have to make sure that we have that on our plate. I know that's a lot to ask for the administration to do because maybe they don't even know exactly. They'd probably leave it up to the schools themselves to do, I'm assuming. But somehow we have to get that information at the table and understand it a lot better than what we do. Because I'm telling you, I don't understand the
Right, so
completely hybrid one.
Let's put it out there as just what we said. You go back to your normal looking classrooms with masks,
No.
right? But
Isn't
listen,
what's
and then
happening.
then that gives you your online percentage to see what kind of drop we're going to get as far as how our attendance is going to look like and how many kids we're going to have.
I'm going to
So,
call the question
If you're saying it's
now.
not happening, that means we're never going back to regular school. We're never going back to hybrid one.
I'm calling the
No.
question. I'm calling the question.
So we're not done talking.
I just
So-
called the question.
Is there a second on calling the question?
Is there an answer on the survey? Can we get a poll on that at least? Or?
He technically has to resolve the question first before we can have any other
All
discussion.
right.
But if she doesn't have a second, then we can get back to the question.
I need a second. Okay, resume your questions.
All right, Brett, keep going.
So that's just the question is, would everybody be in favor of the survey?
if
Survey yes, based on what the recommendation of.
What the
administration is,
recommendation
Not
of
on
the
the,
administration. Much as I'm gonna comment on it, I think the reality is the recommendation is going to come from administration. And that's the information that we need on the table in front of us. so
What's
we can make-
physically involved with doing that? I mean, is that, I mean, I know it's an undertaking to do that, isn't it? Or,
The survey itself?
yeah,
It is, but it's doable.
I can't remember now when the last one we did was in August
July, but.
or
yeah.
July. All right, so
So if what the administration would propose is to keep the 6-foot distancing, which would require splitting classrooms, and that's something realistically we don't think that we would approve because we think that we need to keep these classrooms together. I don't necessarily see the value of the survey to say, would you go online
is a
even
value, but
though we
the
would not
parents
approve
have a
that?
say in what their kids do for education too. It's not just the people sitting in this room. Our job is to educate the citizens of Southeast Polk. So they have a big piece of what they do for their child, whether it's they want hybrid B, they want hybrid 1. We went through that one. Now we need to know who truly wants their kids in there 100% because these numbers are not accurate now. We went from 12% online to 16%. Could that grow? That's going to give me a lot more information. Maybe you guys already have your minds made up. I'm willing to,
I like information.
That's
don't know if
that's all
any-
I'm asking for is it gives us board members that information at the table, which right now we don't have.
Why don't we
We're all speculating, we're all going to different schools and getting different pieces when we need to have one Southeast Polk. I get teachers teach differently. I get that. And buildings should be able to do what they want. But as Southeast Polk, there has to be a plan that this is how we're doing it. Teachers, there's a lot of confusion out there as far as what hybrid 1 would look like. They're scared of that. And the answer we've been getting is, why change hybrid 2? It's working. That's because it's working. They're not saying they wouldn't do anything else if they knew what was in there. I mean, you can't just
what's
say,
known?
you
So
can't
why
just go in and say,
why don't we start here? Why don't we have Dirk in the next 2 weeks draw up what a recommendation would be for hybrid 1 from the district level recommendation? And then we can look at that and see if that's something that we as a board would even be willing to approve. And if it is, then we can look at putting out the survey to get that data.
so you're not interested in what the families of Southeast Polk have to say?
That is
But
what he's
what
saying.
they have to
I'm
say-
asking him. That's
Well,
what
I
I'm
think-
asking.
I am interested, but I'm interested in them having all the information of what it looks like.
First before they make up their decision. Because if we say, hey, it's 16 new sections, your kids are going to be at their desk all day, every day, there will be no movement, they're going to wear their masks, they may not be taught by the teacher they've had since the
Have
beginning of
that
the year.
now, though.
That's going to be one thing. If we sit there and say, hey, we're scrapping anything regarding social distancing, we're putting everyone back in, they may be 2 feet apart from each other, you're going to have different answers. I mean, you're always going to have the people that say, I don't care, throw them back. They need to be in school. I don't care if they're social distancing. I don't care if there's masks. We've gotten the emails from people that think that we shouldn't do masks. That's neither here nor there. But the recommendation on what it's going to look like may have a true impact on whether people choose to be in class or whether they would choose the full online position. That's why I think we need to have the recommendation first.
I think we not only survey parents like you guys are suggesting, since our stats are from July, but don't forget, we need to survey our staff
Absolutely.
and what they're safe with.
Mhm.
That's important too. I value what parents think, obviously.
Yeah, it can go out to the staff
But
as
I
well
think-
too. I mean,
I think
I
there'd be
think-
some staff that would resign face to face with no social distancing. I really,
but that goes to the
Yeah.
question of earlier is, so next year, if the
True.
rates are still at the
I understand.
thing, I mean, there's no easy answers, folks. And I'm not sitting here saying that a survey is going to solve everybody's problems,
No.
but it's one other step to get input from the people. And I agree. Let's, put the staff in there. I mean, I'm not
That's my only point is that-
leaving them out. Yeah.
Yeah, my only point was make sure you do the staff too.
Yeah. No, I would be good for that. I mean,
Do we have any idea why the number moved from 12% to 16% as far as online only? Is there,
And one thing I, want to clarify there is that our overall is 16%. When we looked at the survey responses, it was from 12 to 15%. And our high school is at about 12% right now. And then elementary is about 17% and middle level is about 18%. So overall it's at 16%, but I still think you're seeing that range that we saw in the first survey.
Okay.
Some of the reasons that we saw more people move into the remote learning had to do with exposure in the family or just the family dynamics and concern for people at home that may be susceptible to the disease. So those have been most of the most common reasons for people moving into the online model.
Has it kind of stopped moving now?
Yeah, I mean, there was a while there where we were adding 15 to 20 a week. I think we added maybe 4 or 5 this week. So we are starting to see some stability in that now, yes.
Thank you.
So I agree there's value in getting that feedback, but I think the model that would be put in place needs to be there first as far as what we're talking about putting them into before it's actually relevant feedback. Does that make sense?
There's a, here, can I take this? There's a really easy question right now is if we're not going to go with social distancing to the largest extent possible, if we're not going to drop the 6 foot, then there's no reason to have any of these talks. There's no reason to talk about H1 whatsoever or getting back to schools period. So if we're not going to drop the 6 foot and when they say 6 foot or mask, and we're going to say, no, it has to be 6 foot, then there's no reason to talk about school. Then we stay in this crap for the whole rest of the year and we lower our standards, we cut standards, we go to priority only, we try to minimize their education so they can cover as much as possible, but not learn as much, and then just be done with the school year.
Well, I'd actually argue
Because
that
really,
that's
no,
oversimplifying
it's a
it.
simple question as far as if
Oh,
we're
it's
gonna
not.
drop the 6 foot. Because if we're not, then it's simple. Because there's no hybrid one. Because we're not going to split elementaries into 16 classrooms. It's not feasible. It's not going to work. It puts a hardship on everybody. It's complete garbage. I mean, complete garbage. It's not school. So if that's the case, if we're going to stick with a 6 foot crap for the rest of this, then school is done. Then we're hybrid, we're online, and then it's done. It's that simple. It really is. So we're talking about it like we're actually going to do something, but if we're not dropping 6 foot, then there is no school. There is no getting back to school. There's only what we have now or online only. So let's quit putting that out there and let's let the parents know right now, if we're not going to do this, then it's done. I would have moved my kid weeks ago if I thought this crap was going to happen. My brother moved his 3 kids. So I didn't want to pay $21,000 to go into a private school. Guess what? Bad decision on my part. Because if we're not going to go back to school and I'm not going to allow my freshmen a chance to take her AP classes and a chance to actually learn something this year and not fall behind every other school, this is crap other than Des Moines. Sorry.
Or
Other than Des
Ankeny
Moines.
or Johnston or Urbandale or.
But listen, my kids absolutely hate it. They are not learning. My kid has geometry 1 time a week with her teacher, her high school teacher, 1 time a week. She's learning geometry in 90 minutes. She says, I'm teaching myself geometry, Dad. I said, great job. So it is not school. It is not what we're here for. So we read our mission statement at the beginning of this meeting. It is absolute crap. We are not looking out for our kids.
Oh, I wholeheartedly disagree. I think looking out for the safety of not only them, but the.
I agree.
Challenge them and engaging.
I think the teachers, the staff are doing everything they possibly can.
They are.
We're not putting out crap. We're doing the best we can in a very difficult situation to educate all of our children to the best of their ability, and the staff is doing everything they possibly can, and they're adapting every single week. And I do not appreciate the insult that just occurred. And to all those that are listening, I apologize.
It's not an insult, Lori. Our staff they had to rewrite everything this year. It's truly incredible what we've got done. I'm not saying that. It is incredible what they've done. So, and they are busting their tails, and it's not fair to them either.
Again, I'm saying it's not crap.
So it is.
Well, but it's
have
not.
a
We
kid
have
in there. It
teachers
is
telling
crap.
us that they've ever seen before. That was one of the emails that was sent to all of us from one of our,
Again, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, Adam.
that they've seen better and faster levels of growth in their students than they've ever seen before. We're seeing that they're being able to have a much higher quality education process with our students. Yes, the quantity is gone. granted, but the quality has much improved. And for every parent that we've gotten in the last 2-3 weeks that has sent us an email about how it's bad for them, this week has been 100% the other way around. The majority of emails that at least I've received this week have been positive.
There has been a lot of positive. Yes, there is kids it's
So
working for.
it's not crap. Yes, it's struggles for some parents, but there's always struggles for some parents. There's always struggles for
Yes.
some parents.
You talk about an equity issue, though. This is an equity issue.
Is it though? Because
It is an equity
looking and
issue.
talking with our principals, the ones that are thriving right now are our most at-risk students. Because they're getting a level of interaction that they've never gotten before. So what's the equity issue?
So-
That those who are used to succeeding are not succeeding right now?
I'll ask Joellen, what's the plan for closing the gap? And that was our whole thing this year, is close the gap in education. What is our plan? Because right now I just heard that we're trimming our standards. We're going to critical instead of standard.
We're not
Which is
doing
giving up.
anything instead of, we're focusing on the things that see are the most vital for our students. Our plan for closing the gap is exactly the same as it's been prior to the pandemic. We provide good, solid core instruction, and we put structures in place for multi-tiered systems of support. And it is school that looks different than it has looked before, but I take issue with the word crap. I'm working my tail off. The teachers are working their tails off, and I take issue with that.
I agree. I apologize for that one too. That was a poor choice of word.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do, Joellen.
Thanks, Rick. And I know you're all working hard too. It's very frustrating, and nobody wants it to look like this. We want it to look like it has before, but even better. And we're putting in a model in place that will allow us to get to that in the quickest way possible. So I appreciate everyone's passion for the subject and everyone's hard work around that as well.
And Adam, just a quick one. It's equity because I could pay to go have full-time school. I could pay to have a better education for my child. That's equity.
That's negotiable, whether it's actually a better education or not, but that's neither here nor there. Sure. So for your
I'm
child,
saying
it is,
for
but
me, if I wanted to pay the $7,000, so that's equity, right? So if we had money just laying around, we'd go to a private school. We could go. I had friends that went
But
from
how is
Johnston to
that-
Waukee that paid
Mhm.
tuition to go to Waukee, so they go to school full time. Same thing.
President
That's equity.
Fisher, I call for the question.
Thank you.
So-
Second,
All right, we'll first vote on calling of the question. Karen?
Okay,
What
just a
now?
second.
We're voting what now?
All right,
So first you have to vote on the calling the question, and then we can actually
Yeah.
vote on the
we're
actual
voting on
resolution.
whether or not to shut
Oh,
off
okay.
discussion.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay,
Karen's getting ready. Whenever you're ready.
Powell,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Fisher.
I know, I heard it.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking. No,
Nave,
No.
Slings,
yes.
Handy,
No.
Crowell,
Yes.
all right, motion's passed, discussion's ended. I guess we're back to the pending underlying motion on the return to learn. Question's been called, so we're ready for a vote. Karen?
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
No.
Nave,
No.
Slings,
Yes.
Handy,
No.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. That was our last item, action item for the business meeting portion of our meeting. So now we're on to topics for discussion. These are items where there are no votes taken. They're just matters to be discussed at the board table. Roman numeral through 3A is superintendent's report.
We've got just a couple things here, and Kevin will talk a little bit more about the referendum, but just good news, obviously 70% that the referendum moved forward. Lots of work to do, but lots of exciting work for the district. You've got a magazine at your spot, and have
Nice.
the official for the 6th year in a row. Something we're extremely proud of because this is voted on by our people. And then the final thing, the homecoming coronation was tonight as we've been meeting. I haven't had a chance to look at text to see what happened with that. But tomorrow night would be the homecoming game. I know the band is performing. And although festivities are not as they normally are, the student body, student council in particular, put together several activities this week to help celebrate homecoming. I won't go through meetings, but I will say that we are right in the heart of state data collection time. Certified enrollment right around the corner, and Joel will talk a little bit about enrollment in a few minutes. And with that, I will open up to any questions.
Congratulations on the 6 years in a row for the top workplace award.
Yeah, that's huge. I've said it, I think, nearly every time. That's something that maybe there's so many good things we can point to in this district, and that's, for me, it's one of the top because that's a vote that's done by our staff, and I always want to make sure that our district is the district of choice for the top teaching talent, and I want people to be happy that work here because I think that means they'll do a good job here and they'll tell others, and we'll attract and retain great staff. So excellent job, and congratulations to Dirk and your team, because that just doesn't happen. Those that have been here a stretch of time know that. So that's very much appreciated.
And just to clarify, you've been here 6 years too, right, Dirk?
Yes.
Yeah.
6 for 6.
You guys set that up.
Just making sure we understand that.
Good job.
Yep, congratulations.
Yes.
Were there any other school districts that were named in that report this year? Or?
Not in the large employer, the 1,000 employees or above. There wasn't an AEA over in the Cedar Rapids area.
Oh, proves that point you mentioned earlier, Gary, of us just being better than they are. So
That's right.
There you
Yeah,
go.
because I can think of one of those. I won't say who it is. It used to be on that list. It isn't anymore. They know who they are. All right. Next item is B, certified annual report. That's probably Mr. Bacom.
It is. Thank you, board. Just a quick update tonight. The certified annual report is typically due September 15th for both, for the certified annual report, the special education supplement, and also the annual transportation report. Due to the pandemic and some other technical issues with DE, that's been extended to September 25th, and we're going to take full advantage of that. So we'll have those information for you at the next board meeting, including the modified allowable growth for the special education deficit and also LEP programs.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, maybe you're up on the next one, referendum update.
I am as well. Thank you.
All right.
As Dr. Lupnick mentioned, we did pass the vote by 70%. I heard a couple statements alluding to the referendum and also what happens now with bond proceeds. Just giving you a quick timeline and what we talked about, what I've talked to with our financial planner regarding what happens next. So what happens next is we need to issue bonds. It takes several steps from the board to do that. We may have to have a special meeting. I'd like to get the money here as soon as possible so that we can kind of start with those projects. The one thing we are facing right now to try to get that money here is that that election that happens in November. So in order to close those things, the possible dates for a special board meeting would be the 29th of October. We'd go as early as October 15th, doing the resolution to approve the official statement and set the sales date. But all this is dependent too on what happens with our legal team to make sure we can have that paperwork in time. In the end, we'd be able to have the money by November 19th or November 30th. That would be the soonest we can have those funds. There's a small provision within the legal language that says we can go back 60 days from the date of receiving those funds for those expenses that were incurred prior to receiving funds, to reimburse ourselves for that. But for sure, we will take advantage of those. Just so you know, too, one of the school districts out west issued some PEPL notes recently to the tune of just over $50 million. And those notes gained out in the market, gained a rate of less than 1%. So money is cheap right now. So I think the sooner we move on this, the sooner the better. And we'll get some communication out to you as far as the board regarding the timeline of how this will all shape out when I hear back from our attorneys.
That's very promising, Kevin.
Less than
Yes.
1% on how long of money?
They're out 15 years, I believe, is what our person
God.
said. We initially talked 12 to 15 years. We spotted 13 at the time when we looked at all the assumptions and when we made that $92 million, the par value of that. But we may be able to trim that down by a year or two, depending on what happens within our interest rates as well.
Very,
Thank
very
you.
impressive.
Awesome.
You get all the credit for that.
I won't take all the credit for that. Any questions regarding what we could now call the capital projects 5-year plan rather than the referendum update?
So walk us just I know it's been out there in several different ways. Walk us through what the time period is on what our next step once we have funds are.
We have the timeline for the projects, and that's been spelled out within our information that we've sent out. Initially, though, we haven't started any sort of architect design work for our first priority, which is that 6-7 building, which is our highest priority because of the timing of where students sit right now, the 7th grade bubble students. So we'd have to act on that right away. And concurrently with that, we are and will be actively looking for land to build that building on. So there may be several meetings in which we may have to meet, and a special is in a closed session regarding real estate, hopefully, when we get things rolling with that. And then from there going forward, Mr. Krell, we have really 2.5 to 3 years to kind of set where those bond monies sit. And then ultimately about 5 years of spend based on contingency planning based on my conversation with PFM, our financial planner. So everything we're going to issue right now, the plan will be issue one time. So we save on issuance costs because we will spend most of that money within the first, on our first 5 projects. And then the balance of the money on the elementary building, which is the tail end of our capital projects plan.
Well, and that means you're setting that interest rate then, isn't it? Am I following that right? If you dole it out, you're going to hit the market at a different rate.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, if we dole out one time, we're hitting the market right now versus the risking it issuing later on. Yes, absolutely
Right,
correct.
gotcha. Okay. Yep. I think that's smart. Any other questions on the referendum bond piece projects?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay, Joe, enrollment update.
Good evening again. 2 weeks ago, I reported that we were down 81 students from a year ago. And 2 weeks later, we're at 82 down from where we were a year ago. It's been a tough year on enrollment. As you look at the report, I always kind of like to earmark certain spots where sections, at least temporarily, we're considering them closed, that kind of thing. And as you can see, there are about 5 that should either are or should be marked blue, 5 different sections that we would consider closed. To put this in a context that makes sense, a year ago at this date, well, it'd be actually 1 day off, but a very comparable date to last year. we had 25 sections that were closed off. So I think obviously what we're seeing is a decrease in our elementary numbers. Secondary numbers are pretty healthy, but you know, being down 82 students from a year ago, that's as low as we've been maybe in the 10 years that I've tracked enrollment for the district. You know, it got me to the point where I got kind of obsessed with what's going on? Where are these people going? What's happening? So what I did was I tracked the last 51 exits from our school district. And of those 51, 25 moved. And again, I think I said this last time, it's everything from Arizona to Florida to Maine and all points in between. Another 14 families told us nothing, and which is legal. You know, a family can do that. I would make an assumption that they're either in transit somewhere and just haven't notified us, or they've elected to go with a homeschooling model. Again, people don't have to tell us anything about where they go, but so 14 of those would be unknown. 5 families decided to hold their students back from coming to kindergarten, which, you know, looking at the situation, that one seems to make a little bit of sense in my mind anyway. 5 students, 5 students went to private school. 1 student had health issues and cannot attend. And then the 51st student that I tracked is now at Clayton Ridge, which is an online school. So it's kind of a sort of a grab bag of a number of different issues that, or a number of different solutions that families are exercising. But you know, again, I just got kind of obsessed with where folks are going, and never really knowing why they go. But I think if I knew, you know, I guess going into it, I thought if I could figure out where they're going, maybe I could figure out the why. Only to determine maybe a little. So that's kind of where we stand right now as we approach our certified enrollment date. You know, I'm still have my fingers crossed that we can cut into that 82 and get a little closer to 0. But you know, the clock's ticking. So with that, if anybody has any questions, be glad to ask or be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, item E is technology update.
Okay, so I'll just highlight some things with that's happened with technology over the last few months. Try to make this quick and get everybody out of here. Over the summer, we upgraded many of our network switches in the main network closets of each building. We upgraded and implemented a new security camera system called Verkada that has been well received from the principals. We'll likely have a small phase 2 part of the camera project where we may circle back to some of the elementaries and look at some interior placements. Our priority this first year was at the elementary was 1 exterior at the main entrance and then 2 exterior at the playgrounds. And a couple of the schools we did add a camera or 2, like Clay Elementary, their playground is so expansive. I think we put 3 cameras outdoors just to try to monitor that. We are now fully 1-to-1 K through 12. So we disperse Chromebooks for K2 learners the first week of school. We're doing our best to respond to the needs of the remote learners as quickly as we can. Sometimes we're able to resolve the issue with a phone call or an email, but a lot of times we just work out a time they can come in and exchange the device for one that's working. Same for our remote teachers. We're trying to support them the best we can. It's been a little bit of a challenge just with finding available equipment, kind of responding to some of their needs, newer improved Chromebooks, document cameras, webcams, some of those wireless headsets so they can more easily communicate. Some of those things are available, some are back ordered. So it's just been a challenge to get some of those things in, but we have Chromebooks for every remote learning teacher, webcam, and a microphone headset. We're waiting on the document cameras. They're a week ago, they were 8 to 10 weeks out, so it's hard to tell when those will be in. We've provided families of Southeast Polk 300 hotspots so far since August 17th. So we did the same thing this last spring when we went to remote learning, and we used a company that only provided a pretty limiting data allowance. So this time around, we went with an unlimited data package. So far, we've not heard any complaints in terms of running out of data. So kids are able to join their classes, watch any videos that teachers assign them to watch without any issues. With the referendum passing, the classroom technology upgrades were a part of that. And we're currently piloting over 30 classrooms that include a Clever Touch interactive flat panel, similar to the one we have here in the boardroom, a new teacher Chromebook, a document camera that's a much smaller footprint, more portable, and an audio system similar to the boardroom, but just with 4 speakers. Teachers all have a microphone they can wear, which comes in handy wearing a mask. Now they can be amplified. We'll be making some minor adjustments to those pilot rooms this fall and winter. But we'll also be getting regular feedback from those teachers. So when it comes time for implementation, we'll have hopefully found the most optimal design for our AV upgrades that will start to take place, I believe, as early as next summer.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Cameras on the outside of the building, are they high resolution cameras? We can blow up what we see and expand on it, or are they like Walmart quality on the?
Well, they're not Walmart quality.
Okay, good.
They're higher resolution, but you still have some limitations based on the kind of camera. We have some directional cameras that allow you to zoom in a little bit better. We have 180 cameras that give you a much broader range of view, but you can't zoom in and see someone's face, you know, if they're 55 feet away. It's hard to see. But
Okay.
principals, when they're monitoring the playgrounds, they can monitor the kid. They can track the kid coming from one camera to the next and
Okay.
kind of identify that student by the clothing they're wearing. But if somebody were to paint, you know, like at
On the outside of
midnight
the
at
building.
Delaware, you may not see their face.
So they're not meant to be security cameras. It's more for maybe like an active shooter type situation where they can see what's going on direct.
Yeah.
Is that, okay. Is that kind of?
So
What
with
do you
some of the
think?
different cameras that we have in classrooms for some of the work we're doing right now, as well as some of those smart touch boards, is there a way that we can dream up a better quality image for some of our online students for when they're online on those 2.5 days or whatever it is? Because some of the concerns we've gotten is that even if they log in for like a Zoom or something like that, the image is so poor that they don't actually get anything from looking at the whiteboard. So is there a way that we can improve that?
We have looked at really any possible way we can. It just kind of depends on the scenario. So with our remote teachers, the ones teaching online all the time, that's what we've been more aggressively seeking out solutions to make their teaching more effective and also easier. In terms of like high school teachers that are teaching online and in person, we provided a webcam, a wireless headset mic, a little flex stick for their webcam. We provided those things to them. They have document cameras in the classroom, so they have the opportunity to show documents, you know, instead of the board, they can write on a document and show that to the class as well. So we're doing what we can with limited. And when I say limited resources, I'm not saying I'm being limited from buying stuff. It's finding the resources out there.
Yeah,
that
because
are
everybody
available.
wants them.
Yeah.
Is there a way for some of the smart boards and stuff that we have? Is there any way with Zoom or any of those other Canvas or what have you to pipe in the image that you have on that in there directly so that
Yeah.
instead of
Some
there
of
is?
the
Okay.
teachers are doing that. So
Excellent.
I believe Joel Kahn at the high school is using Zoom to share his Clever Touch screen. So whatever he does on the Clever Touch, the students can see that are remote.
So it's not, just for my own clarification, so it's not as if it's a web page, it's actually just transitioning like it is part of the screen.
Yes.
Excellent.
But we have a limited number of clever touches, so we're only able to do that in limited situations.
I understand. And I had a question about the Clever Touch. I can't remember. I remember when we first got them, they were just amazingly expensive and now they're just still expensive. Like the one here in the boardroom, what's that run?
Well, if you buy it individually, probably around $23.50. But if you buy them in bulk, as we're looking at doing,
Okay.
it gets the price down to about $1,900 a panel.
All right.
Gonna go over online security a little bit. I think we talked a little bit about that too,
Yeah.
but how we're like keeping the students safe as far as on Zoom calls and things like that. With all the hackers and all that kind of stuff
Yeah.
that's up,
Well,
jumping up.
Yeah, I just think teachers are trying to be as vigilant as possible in only sharing their Zoom links with their students and the families. And from what I've seen, they all enter a waiting room, and teachers are requiring that kids have, some teachers a little bit different. Some require a full name, some maybe a first initial, last name. But I think teachers are monitoring that closely, only allowing the students in they recognize. That being said, somebody could pretend to be a student if they know a student's name in a particular class and have access to the link. We're not immune to those things, but we're trying our best to prevent them.
Has that been a problem as of yet for us here in the
Not
district?
yet, no, it hasn't. There may be some students that say inappropriate things, but I don't think we've had anyone jump in class that wasn't authorized and do anything inappropriate.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I know Zoom added a lot of features since the beginning of this pandemic to like the waiting room and turning some of those features on by default.
Yeah.
So I think that helps a lot too.
Yeah, and the challenge is when we have a lot of K2 learners is not making it too complex that they can't get into the session at home when they may have limited parental involvement with what they're trying to do with their online learning as well. Just finding that right, that balance between
Yeah.
security and complexity.
I work with some adults that have challenges with that. So yeah.
All right. Anything else for Jason?
Thanks, Jason.
Welcome.
All right. I
Motion.
think that completes the agenda. Take a motion.
Brett made the motion.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
All
sorry.
right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.